Zecher Lemaaseh Vereishi Shabbat. Zecher Lemaaseh Vereishi Shabbat.
Yismechu b'malachutecha Shomrei Shabbat B'koreh Oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha Shomrei Shabbat B'koreh Oneg Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom. Where have you been? We're delighted to be with you. My name is Barry Nicholsberg. I happen to be the cantorial soloist here at Temple Beth David in Snellville, Georgia. We're about 20 miles east of downtown Atlanta. We are a proud member of the Union of Reformed Judaism. Before we get started this evening, I would like to thank several people here in the room. And I normally end with the folks at the back table. Tonight, I'm going to start with them. And I'm going to start with Denise Whitlock as our streaming specialist, because if it wasn't for her, you probably wouldn't be seeing any of this right now, unless you were here in the sanctuary with us, and we are thrilled that there are some who are. So Denise, thank you very much. And Scott, it's great to see you as always. Next to Denise is my wife, Jeannie Nicholsberg. And Jeannie will be monitoring tonight, and when you type anything into the chat box, she will be the one reading it. Next to her is Judy Kern. Judy is our board president and actually does keep the train running on time. I've struggled week after week with what to say about Judy. There aren't enough superlatives in the English language. Thank you all for being here. Frank Monteleone, guitar. Bobby Horowitz, lead guitar and vice president of our board of trustees. Heather Murray, Jim Murray. And I think that wraps it up until Andrew St. Clair returns from his sabbatical so that he can join us again on the djembe. You may be wondering why I'm dressed like this. And I want to let you know why I'm dressed like this. Because these are the only clothes that I have that were at least similar to the flag of Ukraine. And since we don't have one of their flags here, I thought I would do my best, and that's why I'm wearing what I'm wearing. And I'm proud of it. Let's just take a moment. Let's enter Shabbat. Let's release the past week, its joys and its sorrows. Let's free ourselves from any misgivings or guilt. We are ready to look for new happiness. And in this world, in this day and age, that's not an easy thing to find. But let us bring the best of ourselves to new experiences during the week to come. With that, I would like to ask Judy Kern, our board president, if she would please come down and light the Shabbos candles, which you can find on page 120 and 121.
Please read with me on the top of page 121. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. As we prepare to welcome the Sabbath bride, I invite you to turn to page 138 and sing with us as we welcome her with Lecha Dodi. La 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 Lecha Dodi, la 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 Lekrat Kalam, la 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 Panei Shabbat, Panei Shabbat Nekam. V'zakor yivdur echad v'yishiyanu el hamikad Adonai echad u'shemo echad v'shemu tiferet La 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 Panei Shabbat, Panei Shabbat Nikam. Itoreri, Kiva Ohech, Umi Uri, Kevod Adonai, Alayechi, la 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 Lekarodi, la 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 Lekrakera, la 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 Panei Shabbat, Panei Shabbat Nikam. Now we're going to greet the bride. Please rise physically and or spiritually. Face the door you came in as we greet the Sabbath bride. Shalom, Ateret Valav, Ham B'Simcha, U'Tzola, Tochem Udeh, Am-Sigula. Let's bow and greet her. La 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 Lekadodi, la 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 Lekrakam, la 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 Panei Shabbat, Panei Shabbat Nikam, Panei Shabbat Nikam, Panei Shabbat Nikam. Thank you, and please be seated. I would ask you please to turn to page 144 and follow along. I'm going to ask Bobby, as I do every week, to lead us in the Reader's Kaddish.
Yikadal, Yikadash, Shnei Rabba, Amadi Barach Yirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayechonu, V'yomechon, Uv'chayedcho Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, Uv'izman Karib, v'yimeru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach, ve'olam u'al me'al maya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yipar, v'yitroman, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei d'kudashah b'richu, leila min kol berchata v'shirata, tushkechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'yimeru, amen.
Please turn to page 146 and rise for our call to worship, the Baruch. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch Adonai HaMivorach. Baruch Adonai HaMivorach. HaMivorach le'olam va'ed. HaMivorach HaMivorach le'olam va'ed. Please be seated. Turn to page 148. Join me in reading at the bottom of the page, starting with Blessed are you. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzavot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. Please turn to page 150 and join me starting at the bottom of the page with Everlasting Love. Everlasting love you offer your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. I'm going to throw a bit of a left curve here for everybody else here on the bima with me. I'm just going to do a shortened version of the Shema. Shema, please, sorry again. Would you please rise? I knew I was forgetting something. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Thank you. Please be seated. I was here earlier, and when Jim and Heather arrived, Jim thought that I really shouldn't set a 1-hour goal for myself. But I keep trying. So where we can, we make certain adjustments. If you turn to page 154, you can join me if you'd like in chanting the V'ahavta. It is in Aramaic, looks like Hebrew. It is Aramaic. It is exactly as you see it here in the Torah itself. And we will chant it the exact same way it's been done for at least 3,500 years. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol miodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibahatarpam b'shiftecha b'veitecha u'v'leftecha v'derech u'shoftecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot ben einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'hisharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם Adonai Elohechem emet. On page 157, I would ask you to join me, starting near the middle of the page, in a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace. Give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Before we sing Michamocha, I simply I intentionally selected that reading because of what's happening in Ukraine right now. And if there's a spot on earth that needs our prayers, I think that might be it. Page 158, please join us in singing Mi Chamocha.
Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Ikamocha Elona Ikamocha Nedabo Kodesh Torah Tehilot Osefele Torah Tehilot Osefele Malachut Tekamra Lechachevo Okei Adam Liknei Shelo Miriam Say Aliyanu Liyanu Say Aliyanu V'amru Adonai Imloch Le'olam Va'ed Adonai Imloch Le'olam Va'ed Michamocha V'Reino Elnai Michamocha Nedobo Kodesh Torah Tehilot Osefele נורא תהילות אוספני.
If you will, please turn to page 160 and join us in singing Hashkivenu, my absolute all-time favorite lullaby.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Mehamidenu Malakenu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
If you would, please rise physically and or spiritually as we sing the Tefillah. Sorry, let's try that again. Anananananana Adonai.
Na sabtai tiftach.
Hananananana Ufi Yagid Tahilatecha. Hananananana Adonai. Hananananana sabtai tiftach. Hananananana Ufi Yagid Tahilatecha. Hananananana Adonai. Hananananana sabtai tiftach. Hananananana Ufi Yagid Tahilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Elohei Zilpa, Elohei Bilha, Elohei Tamar. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasei Avot v'Imahot, U'megula livnei bneihem, L'ma'an Shemo b'Yahava, Melech Ozer Mashiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, v'Yetzrat Sarah. Page 168. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakalat harav le'oshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hakashem, Mechakel chayim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somer noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asorim, Umkayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצביע משועה, ונאמן אתה לך יו"ר הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. Page 170. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Please be seated. If you were wondering what happened with that tefillah, Bobby started it correctly and I just chose a different key. I can't explain why I would have chosen a different key. I wish I could, actually. Wish I could explain that. Our worlds are busy and noisy. Traffic jams, horns blaring, cell phones ringing, hopefully not here tonight, text messages buzzing. Too often we hear without listening. Let's take a moment to embrace the gift that only the quiet in your mind and in this sanctuary can deliver. I invite you to join me in praying silently. I will ask you please to turn to page 371. You may have noticed that I have added 3 women's names to the tefillah, and I also add them here in our Mishaberach prayer. Zilpah, Bilhah, and Tamar. They were every bit as important as anyone we already honor. And the best thing we can do, the best way we can honor someone is by remembering their name. This week's Parsha, which we will get to very soon, actually remembers a name we're supposed to not remember, which is really weird. at any rate, in the middle of page 371. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, Leah, Zilpah, Bilhah, and Tamar, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and for their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
If you have names that you would like to add to this evening's Mishaberach list, I would ask that you put them into the chat box so that Jeannie can read them.
Linda and Stephen Ely, Fred Singer, John St. Clair, Dawn St. Clair, Lainey Roan, Marianne Roan, Linda Ehrenstaff, Marcy Schulman, Nina Schulman, Joe Wagner, Sherry Silver, Barbara Frank, Lois and Alan Sorkin, Mike Roth, Dennis Sadler, Amy Holler, Eddie Young, Penny Elliott, Tanya Hurst, Linda Williams, Sandy Tejan, Lisa Miller, Doc Johnson, Brian Segment Nymph,
Scott, do you have anyone you'd like to add?
Yes, we've had Jackie Freeman, Don Freeman, Robert Whitlock, Barbara Whitlock, Terry Hurst.
Thank you. Denise?
Robert Kinsman.
Thank you. Jeannie, you have more names.
Patty Beeman, Leanne Dillard, Frank and Roxana Gomez.
And Jeannie, do you have any names you personally would like to add to the Mishaberach list this evening? Okay. Judy? David? Jackie? Thank you. Wendy? Bobby? No. Okay. Frank?
Nathan Connor Spinelli, George Jasmine Milligan, Nicole Gravante, Joel Lass, Catherine Seidel, Ornella Spinelli, Jim Wade, and Rabbi Fred Matson.
Thank you. Bobby?
Susie Horowitz, Keith Hood, Edwin Speck, Andrew Wheeler, Ed Watkins.
Thank you. Heather?
Teresa Martin, Alexis Scalar.
And Jim?
Jeff Sklar and Meredith Murray.
Thank you. I would like to add Linda Ely, Barbara Jo Babbitt, Margaret Pennington, Maria Zolar, Wendy Fine, Kenny Woodruff, Shelley Perkle, Teresa Martin, Andrew St. Clair, Robin Van Loo, Joanne Stein, Kevin Middleton, Brenda Gibson, Mickey D'Amato, Peter Yarrow, Anya Polara, Ben DeSalvo, Marie Plakos, Benjamin Crone, all those who have been affected by COVID-19 and their loved ones. We also want to add this evening the name of Detective David Call, as he is with us this evening, making sure we are safe to have this service. You have our undivided appreciation and thanks, Detective. With that, I ask you please to join us in singing Mishaberach.
May the source of strength sing, and let us say, Amen. Mishemera imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
This week, we have a Torah portion, as we do every week. This week, it's Vayikra. And while I want to talk about that and will, we have something else that we do on this particular Shabbos. It is called Shabbat Zachor, Shabbat of Remembrance. Interesting. We are commanded to remember that we should never remember the name of someone. I'll explain as I can. Wednesday night of this coming Wednesday night will be Purim, and it will extend, of course, into Thursday. So, some people understand Purim. I'd like to just give you a very quick Reader's Digest thumbnail version. I realize I just dated myself by saying that. At any rate, there was a king, Ashashverosh, and he was king of Persia, which is now Iran. And he had a problem with his wife. She didn't show up at a banquet, so he had her killed. And then he sent his messengers out to find the prettiest women of the land so that he could decide who his next wife would be. Not necessarily the kind of thing you'd really want, but Esther was by far the most beautiful woman in the kingdom. And even though it took 12 months for him to decide, he decided that Esther, in fact, would be his bride. What he did not know is that Esther was Jewish. And her brother, Mordecai, told her, don't say anything. It's just not worth it. Long and short, along comes Haman. Oh, that's a name we're supposed to forget. So, whenever anybody says Haman, out comes the grogger. That's for kids. Adults are supposed to boo. My question is, why in the world are we even saying his name when we're trying to forget him? So, who was this guy? Well, the Amalekites, as you may or may not know, decided to attack the children of Israel after they crossed the Sea of Reeds. They had just finished at Mount Sinai getting the Word of God. And as we will discuss in the book of Numbers, by the way, this evening is the first chapter in the book of Leviticus, there were upwards of 6 million people walking through the desert. The logistics of this are mind-boggling. But of course, as there is with any group of people, there are those who straggle. They can't walk as fast. They're, for whatever reason. And the Amalekites decided this was the group they were going to attack from behind. And they slaughtered tens of thousands of Jews because they were Jewish. No other reason. And God said, I'm not going to allow this to happen. And he said to King Saul, I want you to destroy them. I want you to find the Amalekites. I want you to kill each one, and not just the men and women. I want you to kill their animals. I want you to wipe them from the face of the earth. Saul was apparently not real accustomed to speaking with God because, although he followed most of that, he kind of screwed up because he left the king, Agag, alive. And his troops wanted to save the best cows and the best sheep and for themselves. Saul was actually under a lot of peer pressure, and he caved. That becomes a problem later on. So along comes Haman. Haman was the prime minister of Persia at the time that Ahasuerus was king. And Haman hated Jews. He just hated them. And he knew that Mordecai was Jewish. And so, make a long story short, by this time, of course, Esther is the wife of the king. And Haman says, on the 13th day of Adar, we will annihilate all Jews. We will wipe them from the face of the earth. Mordecai finds out about this. In the meantime, Haman is building a gallows specifically for Mordecai. And Mordecai says to his sister, Esther, this is what's about to come down. She had a couple of days to think about it. She asked him to let the Jews know they should fast for 3 days. You think about how difficult it is for one day at Yom Kippur, but she did ask them to fast for 3 days and ask forgiveness for their sins, whatever they were. She then asked her husband, the king, and Haman to dinner. And she threw 2 dinner parties back to back. The first one, they drank, they ate, they laughed, great. The second one comes along the next night, and she declares to the king that while she loves him dearly, she is going to be put to death the next day. And he's, whoa, stop right there. What the heck are you talking about? And she said, well, I'm Jewish, and Haman, sitting right there, is the one who told everybody that tomorrow is the day all Jews will die. It didn't really sit well with the king, and so, instead of all the Jews dying, Haman died. And the Jews got to live. And so, this is what we remember. And to make sure we remember, on Purim, we read the whole Megillah. It has nothing to do with the gorilla. It's just the Megillah. It has everything to do with the story of Esther. And it is commanded that we either say it or hear it. Every single word, which is very difficult to do when you're doing this or booing. And so the reader has to be aware that all that's going to happen and stop reading until the noise has stopped so that it can continue. In very religious Jewish circles, it is read starting at midnight. And there's a lot of schnapps involved, and people actually try to get drunk, and apparently they do a pretty good job of that. So that's Purim. It's coming right up. And now for this evening's Parsha. It follows right along. The problem that Saul had was he did not finish the job. He was told by God, you've got to wipe all these people from the face of the earth and their animals. You've just got to do it. And I am of the belief that there are two things I absolutely believe in life. The first is whoever has the gun makes the rules. The second is that if God says to do something, you shouldn't screw around with it. You should just do it. But Saul did not. And because he spared the king, Agag, the king was able to have many more children and grandchildren, one of whom was Haman. Saul, on the other hand, had lots of children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, one of whom was Mordecai and the other being Esther. So that's how these two tie together. What God asked Saul to do was wipe evil from the face of the planet. None of us could advocate the complete destruction of people. I don't think we're capable of doing that. Although we were certainly proved wrong of that theory during World War II. And apparently we're being reminded of it today, this week, last week, and into the future as to what's going on in Ukraine right now. We can extrapolate from this episode as an indictment of evil. We must be committed to eradicating evil, to seeing this task through to its completion. Saul, King Saul, chose to leave the job incomplete. And because he made that decision, some evil remained. And because it remained, it grew stronger and stronger and became stronger than ever. Rather than a directive to destroy our enemies, we can interpret the story of Saul and the Amalekites and its sequel in the Megillah as a reminder that we must be fully committed to our pursuit of justice. Remember, the only word in the Torah that's repeated by itself is justice, justice you shall pursue. We have an obligation, each of us has an obligation to stop evil where it is. And whether it's someone's grandson who is headed now to Ukraine to help them fight, or it's something here at home, we are responsible to do whatever it takes to stand up for ourselves, for our neighbors, for those living in Ukraine who are, in fact, our neighbors, when they are fighting evil. We have that responsibility. Some of us can actually go to Ukraine, pick up a gun, and fight. Others can send money to help support those who are fighting. Others will house some of the refugees, the more than 2 million people who have already been able to get out of Ukraine alive. We can fight evil in many ways. It really comes down to how we spend our money. What causes do we donate to? Do you donate to the ADL? Do you donate to whatever? It makes no difference. Are you donating to fight evil? We are commanded. What do we tell our children? Do we bring them up to understand what evil is? Do we bring them up to not accept evil and to do what they can to eradicate it? Sometimes we demonstrate, sometimes we protest, sometimes we're arrested. These are all ways we engage in social and economic combat of evil in our modern age. It is exactly what the United States and the European Union and many other countries have now done with Russia, saying, we're not buying anything from you. We're not allowing you to export to us. You're frozen out. You are doing something evil. And so they are. But just like Saul, we need to be wary of leaving our task half done. It is difficult to keep up the fight when others in our social circle tell us we've done enough. And we've all been there. That peer pressure that King Saul felt. We all have peer pressure. And if our friends are saying, look, you've done more than you need to do, just chill. That's not an acceptable excuse for stopping. We need to be wary of making excuses that the job is too difficult, or we're too busy, or we're powerless. If we avoid taking action, we run the risk of the same pitfall that Saul fell into. He allowed evil the opportunity to make a comeback. God has told us outright, you must eliminate evil. It is our obligation to be vigilant. I'm not suggesting for a moment that anybody go out and kill anybody. I am suggesting that we tell the world that when we see evil, this is what it looks like. We do not want to shift the burden to our descendants. We must do all we can in our own day to make this world a better place. Shabbat Shalom. I would normally at this point chant El Malei Rachamim. We are running out of time. And so I would ask you please, we'll leave that for tonight. We will do it next week. But let us turn to page 599. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Of them all we say, Zichronam Livracha.
Elena?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Well, I'm going to come back and reread page 599. When I told you Judy is all places, she's there saying, hey, didn't you forget like the Aleinu? Yeah, I did. Talk about being focused. Okay, would you please turn to page 586 and rise physically and or spiritually for the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gedula liotzer reshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, v'lo samanu kemishpechot hadama, shelo sam chelakenu kahem, V'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim u'mishpachim u'odim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Shehu nota shamayim v'oseh haaretz, Moshav Yaakov b'shamayim ima'al, Ushinatu zo, B'kohei meromim, Hu Eloheinu eino, Emet malkeinu et gesulato, Ka'katuv b'torato, Yadata yom v'hashivota el levanecha, Ki Adonai hu Elohim, Hashamayim ima'al, V'ya'aretz Page 588. For you spread out the heavens and established the earth. Your majestic abode is in the heavens above, and your mighty presence is in the loftiest heights. You are our God, and there is none else. In truth, you are our sovereign without compare, as is written in your Torah. Know then this day and take it to heart, that Adonai is surely God in the heavens above, and on the earth below. There is none else. Ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, lamelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, Shemo Echad. Please be seated. We're going to pretend that other thing didn't happen. Turn to page 599, please. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Of them all we say, Zichronam livracha. May their memories always be for a blessing. If you are in a period of Shiva, the first 7 days since someone has passed, please let us know. Thank you. Zichronam livracha. Are we in the first 30 days since someone has passed? I will add the name Richard Blum. Are there any others? Those who were close with us, to us, we will remember as they passed within the past 12 months. Daniel Joseph Middleton, Larry Kramer, David Yarborough, Sylvia Cart, Rossi Davis, Jack Smith, Laura Rusiak Rosen, Louis Jutsi, Michael Bernard, Annette Carter, Edna Dockerman, Robert Diskin, Erwin Finkelman, Mickey Kroll, Daniel Roth, Nicholas Collins, Ed Gallup, Frank Perrone. We also remember these who have died during this week in years past. Rebecca Finkelman, Gary Eugene Horowitz, Wesley B. Inglet, Mark Zidell, Jerry Rubin. Are there any other names you wish to add? I would ask you all to rise as a congregation of one to support those who are in mourning as we recite the Mourner's Kaddish found on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah Bi'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamliuch malchuteh B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala u'vizman kariv imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam u'almei amaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithalev v'yithalal shemei kudshah baruchu le'elam im kol berchatav v'shiratav tushbechatav v'nechematav damiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shamayim v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, uyaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. Well, Jim, regrettably, you were right. I can't do it in an hour. Just can't.
It's all right.
We didn't do Hamirah last week. And we really want to do it. So stay with us, please. If you haven't heard this before, the chorus has only two words, hum and ha. And you'll pick it up very quickly, and I hope you will sing right along. Hamirah, by the way, the meaning of it is the one who enlightens the world and all of her inhabitants with mercy. And in her divine goodness, she continually renews each day the act of creation. Hamirah.
Hum ha ha hum ha ha hum ha ha hum hum ha ha hum ha ha hum ha ha hum hum ha ha hum ha ha hum ha hum hum ha hum ha hum ha a merry run, a merry run, a merry run, the ares, the lagarim, aleha barachamim. A merry run, a merry Valadrim Aleha, Valadrim Aleha, Valadrim Aleha, Valadrim Aleha, Barachamim, Utuvah, Mechadeshet, B'chol Yom, Tamid, Utuvah, Mechadeshet, Aseh, Bereshit, Hum ha ha, 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 hum ha hum. A merry rock, a merry rock, a merry aretz, v'ladarim aleha barachamim. A merry rock, a merry rock, a merry rock, Valadrim Aleha, Valadrim Aleha, Valadrim Aleha, Valadrim Aleha, Barachamim, Utuvah, Mechadeshet, B'chol Yom, Tamid, Utuvah, Mechadeshet, Maseh, Bereshit, Hum ha ha, hum ha ha, hum ha hum. Hum ha hum ha hum
Thank you for staying with us. If we have announcements, Jeannie, please read them.
In keeping with current CDC guidelines, TBD has gone mask optional for those who are fully vaccinated. Masks are still required for anyone not fully vaccinated. Please consider joining us in the sanctuary to worship as a community. Please continue to read your TBD emails for announcements and event details. Sisterhood Book Club is meeting on Sunday, March 27th. Details were sent by email. Our local SCN representative has scheduled 2 classes this upcoming week. Situational Awareness on Tuesday, March 15th at 7. Stop the Bleed, Thursday, March 17th at 1. Registration links were sent by TBD email. We want to thank Detective Call for being here, for keeping us safe tonight, and every time he puts on his uniform.
Thank you. I would like to congratulate David and Toby Michelson. Today is their wedding anniversary. Michael and Lori Duff will be celebrating an anniversary this week. Taylor Mays will be celebrating a birthday this week, as will Andrew St. Clair. And Andrew, one more time, we sure look forward your being able to return. With that, I would ask you please to rise for the priestly blessing, which will bring our service this evening to a conclusion. Yivarechecha.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Yair Adonai panoyecha v'tunecha.
May the Lord's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you.
Adonai panoyecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May the Lord's face turn toward you and grant you peace. May you go from strength to strength. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, I'm stuck.
What did you do?
I don't know how